What's up, guys? I'm Crystal Lee Naomi, aka Jasmine Borders on Tyler Perry's Sisters. Be sure to subscribe to the Haves and the Have-Nots review for not only reviews on the Haves and the Have-Nots, but also on Sisters. And while you're at it, give your girl a follow on Instagram at Crystal Lee Naomi. And I'll see you every Wednesday at 9, only on BET.
All right, Sisters fans, this will be my episode review for Season 2, Episode 16, Missing What You Never Had, which aired last night. I took a nap around 8:45. I woke up, it was 9:30. I'm like, oh crap, I missed the episode. Well, most of it. So I just finished the episode. It was pretty good. What would I score it? Let me look over my notes to come up with a score. While I'm doing that, go ahead and like this video. Let's try to get to 100 likes. Hit subscribe. Hit the bell notification icon and select all. That way you don't miss out whenever I post new content to the channel. And follow me on social media. Links are in the description below. 7.5 out of 10. This was a pretty okay episode. It wasn't anything mind-blowing. It had some very good scenes in it, but I feel like, you know, for the most part, we got a lot of the same for most of the scenes. But again, it wasn't bad. It was pretty good, but I'd say above average. 7.5. That would be like above average, right? So let's jump into the episode. All right, so Zach is being arrested. If you ask me, just based off the cops' instructions and how he was being a bit hostile towards Zach, this felt way too setup-ish, if you ask me. This definitely felt like this was completely arranged as opposed to a quote-unquote natural progression of an arrest, because yeah, I do like the little things. Well, it was a bit hard to watch, but there were a few little things that obviously were in reference to various things that occurred in 2020, because remember, this was filmed in 2020, such as you know, police being rough with a black man who they feel isn't complying or resisting arrest. The body cam and stuff like that, just those little things, the nuances, they really shone in a scene like this. But it just seemed way too, it kind of reminded me of the scene where Barry got arrested in the premiere for The Oval, but Zach wasn't being anywhere near as hostile as Barry was. But I'll get back to this scene later on in the episode. So we have Fatima over at Karen's salon, and you know, they kind of recap as like, oh yeah, my hair got messed up, I had a wild night, he took me in the shower. And it turns out, you know, Karen's like, wow, at least one of us had a wild night, because she's referencing the fact that she's dating a Christian who's a preacher. And Fatima's like, oh yeah, wants to be celibate until marriage. How'd you know? Well, you said preacher, right? I dated a preacher. It lasted about 3 weeks, but celibacy wasn't for her. And it's interesting because they both talk about Zach without saying the name Zach. You know, Fatima's talking about, you know, I'm dating somebody who doesn't have much now, but I want somebody with, you know, who's, you know, it's about trying something different. And then Karen's like, you know, I used to do that not too long ago. My ex, he didn't have a lot, but I want to date somebody with ambition. And, you know, it's funny because whereas Karen was beating down Zach and unable to see the potential within him, you got Fatima, who feels the exact opposite about Zach. And because of how she's treating Zach, not only is Zach becoming a better man, but Zach is actually making Fatima potentially change the way she views dating in general. So it just goes to show you that the difference between a woman who builds her man up instead of tearing her down. But you have to remember, Zach wasn't the model boyfriend when he was with Karen, constantly cheating. He wasn't paying any half of the rent or anything. So we don't know if Karen was like Fatima when her and Zach first got together, because Zach talked about how, you know, he was hesitant with Fatima when they first, you know, when she invited him over to her place, because, you know, oh, you trying to put me up, you trying to help me out, like my ex did the same thing, but then things went south. But I think it's possible that Fatima and Karen were both doing the same things, you know, like in regards to helping Zach with a job, you know, Fatima. Well, technically it was Chris that kind of hooked him up with chain breakers, and that's how he met Fatima to begin with. But with Danny working at the airport, Karen probably got Danny to put in a good word to get Zach that job. But I feel like what probably happened is Zach wasn't progressing as quickly as Karen wanted wanted him to. So she was constantly putting him down as opposed to helping him unlock potential. That's probably what happened, but I don't know. Either way, I know some comments in the Facebook group were like, Karen don't know what she doing with that hot comb. She ain't doing nothing to help Fatima. And she's like, I got 45 minutes. So they work on that. But this was a very interesting scene because I feel like they're really building it up until they both discover they're talking about Zach. All right. So then we go over to Danny and Preston. This was a sweet scene because, you know, Preston's like, you know, trying to figure out what his next move is going to be. You know, he's very sweet. He's appreciative of everything Danny's doing. The fact that he wouldn't know what to do if it wasn't for her. And, you know, he's like, well, I got a cousin about a 3-hour drive. I can try to contact them to see about a job because he doesn't just want to be sitting around. But Danny's going to, it's kind of like, you know, they're kind of changing their outlooks, like where Danny isn't used to dating someone sweet and Preston isn't used to, you know, having his feet, kicking his feet up and relaxing. He's used to working, but Danny reassures him like, look, you don't have to figure it all out today, which is crazy because I felt a bit of Fatima in this scene because, you know, Karen would have been like, you better get your ass off that couch. You ain't sitting around here all day while I go to work. You're going to go out there and find a job. Whereas it's like Danny's like, look, calm down, take a day or so, get yourself together, and we'll figure it out. Damn. I liked it. But then things got ruined when Butt Liquor, a.k.a. James, showed up with a gift unannounced, and Danny got him to get out of there. It's like, you better not bring your ass over here again. It was a painting. Too bad we didn't see it as an audience, but Preston said he really liked it. It was a beautiful painting. So that was pretty funny. All right, so oh yeah, before, what was it? I think that when Preston kept going on about the butt liquor thing, you know, Danny's like, hey, don't make me call your brothers, come over here and beat you up again. She was like, call him. I like the sass he put in that. That was hilarious. All right, so we got Andy arriving at work, and Gary approaches her in the parking lot, and he's basically saying the same. Props to Andy, at least during this scene, because she was holding her ground, just deflecting everything. It's crazy because if you go back to season 1, I think before he got to like the third line, his classic line, hey, I'm sorry, I love you, everything that's going on in my life. Like, if you go back to season 1, before he can get to like line 2 or 3, she's already in his arms again. But basically, she's deflecting everything. Hey, I heard all this, the sorries, I got bruised ribs. Like, hey, well, I'm going to Boston. Okay, good. Yeah, I'm going to start over. But, you know, I was hoping that you'd say, no, stay here, let's work it out. No, I'm not doing that. It's like, oh, you love him, don't you? Basically showing once again he's jealous. Andy's like, I'm not dating anyone. Like I said before, if Andy, this is how it works. He's an asshole. They fight. Gary reapproaches her and says, I'm sorry, I love you. Andy falls for it. And when he's being sweet, that all dissolves away when Andy's in his arms. Is like, wait, don't go out with the girl, stay with me. Oh, you're seeing some other guy, aren't you? It's the same old thing over and over again. And he actually pulls a pretty damn dirty move. It reminded me of House of Pain when damn, what was his name? Caleb. He told Jasmine, it's like, well, if you love me, you do it, in regards to sex. Whereas in this case, Gary just went for the jugular. It's like, look, I know part of you deep down wants to give us another chance. And Andy looked like she was kind of buckling, but thankfully Fatima swooped in and just said, is everything okay here? You have a meeting in about 10 minutes. Okay, let's go to work. So then they leave. All right. Then from there, Danny is calling Sabrina. Danny's on her way to work and basically tells Sabrina about what happened with Preston. Oh, he actually showed up at my place. It turns out, you know, the thing with the brothers, something he had nothing to do with in regards to the bet. Preston's really sweet. So it's kind of funny because they both call each other out, where Sabrina says, Danny, you're not used to sweet. And then you have Danny calling out Sabrina. It's like, oh yeah, Calvin, you know, that's way too much sugar. You like the roughnecks, the tattoos and whatnot. And then she talks about Jacoby, the new guy at the bank. And then Danny's like, well, Sabrina, it's like, you got to try something to see if you like it. It's like, you can't just focus on Calvin if he hasn't called you. And he's like, yep, he hasn't called. So it's like, and plus I saw him on social media. He posted with another girl, not to mention I saw him at the restaurant that night with the other girl. So Danny's rightfully like, just go out for coffee, see if you like it. That's all you got to do. You ain't got to worry about getting married or anything. So then Jacoby walks in, and they kind of connect. It's like, hey, I brought my own coffee. I work out every day. Turns out they both work out at the same gym. The only difference is Sabrina goes to, what is it called, spin class with the sisters, whereas, you know, Jacoby tries to find common ground where it's like, well, hey, I'll try the class if I can do it with you. And he asks her out on a date, but, you know, she's manager. So, you know, conflict of interest when you're dating employees. But before he can actually get a yes, because he transitions from coffees to sandwiches, Maurice kind of cock blocks him. And then, you know, he calls her out for like, well, what about Calvin? What about him? When are you going to ask about him? I know you want to. So then that's the end of that scene. I think my favorite part of the scene is when Maurice kind of slowly tilts his head towards Sabrina, and then she slowly tilts her head towards him, because he's like, what was that all about, in regards to Jacoby? All right, so we go over to Andy and Fatima. You know, Fatima goes in there briefly just to check in and make sure Andy's okay. And, you know, Andy tries to brush it off, but then she's like, hey, thank you for being so cool about it. And, you know, it's pretty cool. They just talk about how love makes them do crazy things and everything. So then Miss Irene comes in, and after this scene, I feel like Miss Irene should be a Stan Lee. You know how in the MCU, Stan Lee would rest his soul, would just pop up and he would have a cameo in like every movie. I feel like Miss Irene should do that on various Tyler Perry shows. Like whenever somebody's doing something completely wrong or they need advice, she needs to just randomly pop up, spit out a verse, and then just leave. Like John 16:21. And I mean, at this point, and plus we know what happens in the preview for next week. I just don't get it with Andy anymore, because I'm going to go back to what Miss Irene said, but after Miss Irene leaves, you know, she was like, yeah, she's so wise, and Fatima was like, you got that right, she's something else. It's like, yeah, she's too honest. And it's like, wait, what? So basically from there, Fatima asks, like, wait, does she want you to date her son? And it's like, yeah, he fine though, I ain't doing it. So basically right there, she basically shot down any chance that she'd be with Paris. So that pretty much negates any scene that these two have in the future. But going back to what she said about she's too honest, it's like, this just goes back to how Andy just wants somebody to vent to. And Andy just wants somebody to blindly validate her feelings. Like when she was telling Miss Irene about love, because she was the one that asked Miss Irene to come in. And when she said, oh, I'll go, because, you know, Fatima was behind it. That's with Andy doing work. But it's like, no, I might need backup for this. And because she needed advice. So what the hell does Andy want? She asked Miss Irene for advice. She gave the advice and then she left. So then you want to get on her about, yeah, she's too honest. Then what the fuck did you want the advice for? Basically, it was about love, and she was confused. And then when, you know, Miss Irene told the truth, because everybody in the office knows what Gary did and, you know, how that impacted Andy and whatnot. So it's like, it's not a secret. Ain't no need to kind of, you know, like putting your head down, looking at the floor. Everybody knows what's going on. So she's like, well, Miss Irene, you don't know about the good times, the promises we made. When Miss Irene said John 16:21, and it's been, hang on, I got it on my computer here. Actually, I did have it on my computer. I gotta pull it back up. I'm sorry. I got like 20 tabs open because I've been doing so many videos. What did it say? John 16:21, NIV version. I sound like a preacher. Yes, take a moment. Please stand to your feet when you have gotten to John. The New Testament now, John chapter 16, verse 21. Everybody got it? Okay, let's go. A woman giving birth to a child has pain because her time has come. But when her baby is born, she forgets the anguish because of her joy that a child. Hang on. Part of it was cut off. Sorry about that. Okay. A woman giving birth to a child has pain because her time has come. But when her baby is born, she forgets the anguish because of her joy that a child is born into the world. That pretty much defines the Andy Gary dynamic. It's like, you think about the good times and they're beautiful, but that doesn't erase the pain that was presented by this so-called relationship. And she basically said, this is all that needed to be said. I feel like Miss Irene is the Maurice of this situation. You know how Maurice just squashes Calvin and Sabrina's back and forth banter about nonsense. Like, look, if you want to be with him, if you don't want to be with him and you don't want to be with her, just leave each other alone so we can stop hearing about it. That's pretty much Miss Irene. She's like, let me tell you what you need to hear, and then I'm about to go and sweep a floor somewhere because I ain't got time for this nonsense. She says, you really can't miss something you never truly had. You say it's love, but this man was married to somebody else. That wasn't true love. And that's it. That's honestly all that had to be said. So then we go over to the jail. Zach sitting in there. Rhea comes up and just goes in on him. And I didn't like this scene because it made Rhea not likable, because I felt like after the apology she accepted when, you know, he was in jail last time, I'm not saying everything would have been, you know, all hunky-dory between the two, but for her to kind of lash out at him the way she did, basically he's in for credit card fraud and he asked for a phone call. She kind of taunts him a bit before finally giving him the phone. But it's kind of interesting because do you notice that her face and demeanor completely changed as soon as she overheard Zach saying Fatima on the phone? Because she knew about the little girl with the salon that he was chasing after, but apparently she didn't know about Fatima. So after that, you know, he did leave her a voicemail. All right, so then we go over to Hayden approaching Fatima, asking her out for dinner. She says no. He just intrudes on it. So what you do last night? Yada, yada, yada. And she ain't hearing it. So if you free up anytime tonight, because if you make plans, it might not happen what you do tonight, which signifies that he knows what's going on with Zach. And Fatima's like, if you did anything, it's on. Oh, I didn't do anything at all, but if you need me, just call me. I think it's safe to say that, you know, Hayden has something to do with it, but we will touch upon that in just a moment. Next scene. Gary comes over to the salon to see Karen. Pam kind of flirts with him. That doesn't really go anywhere. And Gary is not being rude for once, but he definitely isn't being respectful, because Pam is like, well, Karen's the boss. She's on a break. She's going to be on break for however long she wants to be. Gary's like, I'll wait. I don't know how long it's going to be. I'll get a haircut. We don't do walk-ins. We only do call-ins. And then Karen came up to the booth, and then it's interesting because notice that Pam handed her purse. Now you're probably wondering, well, Jeremy, that doesn't mean anything. It was just her handing the purse. If that means Karen leaves her purse at the front every day, wouldn't that mean technically Pam would have access to the purse and by extension the business credit card? Dun, dun, dun. All right, so they go outside, and once again, Gary's just spouting the same old nonsense. Hey, tell Andy how much I love her. Tell her I'm sorry for everything I've done. Karen just shuts it down. I don't really need to hark on this scene. Karen just shut it down like a boss, definitely showing her Miss Lisa traits of her mother. Look, I don't like you. I don't trust you. I don't know you. I don't want you anywhere near my friend. Oh, I'll talk to her all right. First of all, you better not come around here again, because if you keep popping up like this the way you are, I'll persuade Andy to put a restraining order on your behind. So then Gary realizes he's not getting anywhere. And you notice that he didn't straight up answer or respond to Karen when she's like, don't come around anymore. It's like, yeah, okay. So then Karen calls Andy, and Karen asks Andy if Gary tried to call her. She says no, which is correct. But she did not mention that Gary approached her in the parking lot, because Karen says how Gary popped up at the salon and, warns Andy, hey, it's going to be a matter of time before he pops up to see you. It's like, no, I'm going to watch out. So basically it's like, hey, I'm at work. And then Karen's like, well, what are you going to do when work isn't a distraction? Because work is how she's distracting herself from Gary. Hence why, Fatima was able to get her inside in the parking lot. So it's like, I don't know what Andy wants. It isn't even like, who does she want, Paris or Gary? I feel like, what the hell does Andy want? It's like, if you say you feel lost, you say you feel confused, but when your friends are trying to give you good advice, because didn't she tell Fatima, yeah, it's good I could talk to you about it because I can't even tell my sisters about it. What kind of sisters are they then? No, what kind of friend are you? So They pretty much, what did Karen say? She's heading over to the bank. Then later tonight they'll get drinks or something, but she'll have to ask, Aaron first in case, they have plans. So we go over to the last scene, Zach's in jail, still. Rhea comes up saying, I thought you were a good guy. I thought you were going clean, but there was a kilo of coke in your spare tire. You're going down for this. And then Zach's like, ah! And then that's the end of the episode. So this episode gets a 7.5 out of 10 for me. I thought it was pretty decent, but let me know your thoughts in the comment section below. And as always, if you would like to donate to the channel, feel free to do so on PayPal, Cash App, or join Patreon for as little as $1 a month. Thanks so much for tuning in, and I'll talk to you next time.